Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.
We're so thrilled to have back on the show Grammy Award-winning husband-wife duo. They cover so many different styles of music, but they got a brand new album out now. I've got Mark and Maggie O'Connor. So nice to have you back in studio.
Great to be here.
Absolutely.
It's been like years since back when you guys were doing like the family tour.
Yes.
And bringing everybody along. But now we've got Life After Life. And I mean, what a positive album. We got to talk about this, Maggie, to where also, I understand there was a highly paid artist that did a lot of the artwork inside of here as well.
I am very, very proud that it features my artwork. We just took pieces. Everything has meaning, really.
Well, you know, and also when you pull out the album too, we were talking about this earlier, to where, look at that.
She painted that.
Yes.
Oil painting.
Yes.
And then you've got pencil on the back here. So not only do you get incredible music, but you also get artwork.
I know. I love that about the vinyls. It's like such a great way to showcase all these things, and it's nice to be able to show the world, you know, who we are as artists in multiple ways.
Well, and I got to bring this up too, Mark. You and I were talking before we came in studio, and certainly with the many albums that you've done and the bands and everything else, but this is really, you know, what a great vocal album on this, kind of a departure. You guys were so well known for doing instrumentals and everything. You've been together 10 years now.
Yeah.
This really showcases Maggie singing, and like on the trailer for the video, it was like, it's so positive and uplifting with all the vocals.
I know. Well, we wrote a lot of these songs during the pandemic years.
Right.
And we wanted to have a theme about the album dealing with love, but love in its various forms, mainly love of life, and learning to love life again after being frightened by a lot of life circumstances, especially at that time, right? And so our songs were about us and about everybody in our community, in our country, looking for more optimism, more hope, finding different ways to connect. And Maggie, I love, well, Life After Life is our title track, but I love Maggie talking on that same subject.
Yeah, well, there's so many different ways you can think about that phrase, applying it to us. I mean, Mark's lived like 5 different lifetimes just in what he's done in music. And then now we're at this phase of life together. We also, you could look at it a little smaller, where Mark and I were just a couple of violinists. Our first album was just 2 violins, the whole thing. And then we had this great journey with our family band where we started singing. Mark started playing guitar again. We started doing more Americana stuff. And then the pandemic hit and it was just us again in our living room. And we had this opportunity to create some more music together. And this came out of it.
Well, it's so amazing too, you know, listening to the whole album, there's so many great songs on here, but also I have to bring up to where it's you know, you've got 3 songs on here that you did covers, and one of them, Wildflowers by Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
And then you got a letter from Dolly.
I know. She got to hear the recording. We were so thankful that it got to her. And, you know, Mark actually played on the original recording of that.
It's like the full circle.
Yeah.
And I love the message of that song so much, especially for young people, young women. It's so empowering. And so I was just, when we first worked it up, I was just checking out some Dolly Parton songs, and I really liked the message of that song. And then Mark yells up from the other room, you know, I'm on the fiddle on that.
You know, and of course Mark is. It's like, you know, like we were talking before we came in studio, you know, from his early years, and certainly, you know, with Roy Acuff, being on the Opry at 12 years old and all this stuff, and Chet Atkins inviting him to Nashville, it's like that full circle. But also, you know, like listening to this album, Life After Life, it seems like it's just so fresh and new. And you know, like we were talking about with the positive message and with Maggie's vocals and your instrumentation, but also, you know, the other 2 songs, the song by Jason Isbell and also Stevie Wonder, interesting choices for 3 add-on songs.
Yeah.
I
can see the Dolly.
I don't even know if we really planned on, it's like we worked up these songs and then it ended up on the album, and it all is so cohesive once it's there. But I guess
we worked them all up for our online shows from our living room.
With Mark and Maggie.
We were like exhausting our current repertoire. We just kept going. We had 70 shows in a row from our living room.
But we just pick music that speaks to us, that speaks to these messages and what we want to convey to people, and
Right.
because it's not really about us, it's just about how we want to be in the world, what we want to see in the world.
Right.
And so all this music just kind of came together in that way.
And the new songs we were workshopping in front of our online audience. And so the final cut from all that activity, all that work is on our album. As soon as the pandemic came down and we could get out more, we got over to Nashville, cut the songs, our favorite songs that we debuted on that online show from our living room for over a year. Wow. And I co-wrote several with some great writers, including Joe Henry, a fantastic Americana.
I was going to bring that up.
Singer-songwriter and producer.
I love his words. Like they just they taste good to sing.
Well,
Like,
and I think
it's
the
amazing.
imagery. I think I could really tell those songs that you worked on with Joe to where the imagery, and I think that's even talking about how uplifting the songs are and the musicianship and the vocals and everything. But it's like when you can picture it in your mind while you're listening to it.
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
that's
why
a
I love doing the artwork for this too. Even in some of the lyric videos that we've released, feature some of my artwork, and a lot of it especially We Just Happened to Fly.
Love that.
It's kind of like what I'm envisioning. I came up with this kind of whimsical little story where Mark and I are like, we meet these two Luna moths and they lead us up a mountain and turn us into owls. But it's just like, so it just creates so much opportunity for the imagination.
Yeah, and it's so much fun. And I think also, though, like you said too, Maggie, though, you're both known as instrumentalists. I mean, you studied at Peabody.
Yeah.
And certainly with Mark's history and award-winning, all the awards you've won, Mark, over the years, but it's like, you guys are kind of known as instrumentalists. And so, but audiences are really embracing this.
Yeah, it's
when
like,
you're playing
surprise!
this out on the tour, they're like going, wait a minute,
I know, like we're playing, our, duo fiddle stuff.
Right.
And all of a sudden we break out a new song and it's finished. I mean, and the audience is reacting to it as if these songs, even the new ones, have been around for a while. And we've just, in producing this album, I made sure that both Maggie's and my instrumental talents are really focused in on the tracks.
Right.
And so Maggie's taking most of the fiddle solos, I'm taking most of the guitar solos, and then when Maggie's singing, I'll bring in my fiddle behind her voice.
Right.
And so you're actually,
And it's magical. Like he just knows how to do that. Nobody can do it like Mark can. I mean, that's why they had him, the top Nashville session player.
Oh, totally.
I mean, he can still do that.
But he just weaves them in. That's what I noticed to my ear when I'm listening to that, and you explaining it, Mark, which I appreciate. But it's like you just weave them in to where it's like all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, there's another fiddle there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you take notice of that. I got to ask you too, the Bob Dylan effect.
Yeah.
How did you apply that to this album?
Well, I got to work with some of the greatest singer-songwriters of our era.
Right.
Like Paul Simon, James Taylor, many here in Nashville, and Bob Dylan. And there was just one circumstance where I was in the studio and I was right next to Bob Dylan, and the session went a long time. Don Was producing. Wow. And so in between takes, Bob would just be noodling on his guitar. And Bob is not a guitar soloist, but he was like playing solo licks. And after a while, I found it so fascinating that he just loved his guitar so much. And I'm a guitar soloist. So I thought, in a kind of a wild, turnabout of events, I mean, here's an instrumentalist singing songs that I'm writing.
Right.
And so I'm looking at, so how do I approach my new music as a guitarist? And I was thinking about that Bob Dylan moment, where if Bob Dylan was a guitar soloist, what would he sound like on the guitar? And that I was channeling that every time I was playing guitar solos and fills on this album.
It's such a neat thought concept because, obviously, Mark, when you started out young, your mom was really pushing you on the guitar, and then you had to, go beg to get, like fiddle and mandolin and all these other instruments that you've added to your repertoire now. And during different periods of your life, you're kind of known for different instruments. And now with this album, it's back to guitar.
Isn't that amazing? Well,
And we got you singing too.
yeah, so I'm singing all the harmony,
I could
so
tell.
all the duo singing. And so, last time we were in your studio, it was my whole family,
Right.
my family band. And so my family got me singing and playing guitar again because we already had 3 fiddlers in our family. And it's like, even though I'm like,
And thank goodness they weren't banjo players.
well, that is a blessing, isn't it? So, however, I was maybe chief fiddler. These 2 in my family were great fiddlers too.
Right.
And I could play other instruments once in a while. And at that time, I wasn't. So I go, I got to get the guitar and the mandolin going again.
Plus, the guitar and mandolin in the band was so good, and they were having so much fun.
Yeah.
I think you really wanted to join in.
I wanted to,
Counterplay.
yeah, I wanted to get some of
and
that.
only if you had a good guitar to take out too.
Yeah,
Besides your Martin, and now
Yeah.
you've got another new one that you've been playing.
I know. So my old herringbone Martin, 1945.
Which I love.
Beautiful. It sounds like a piano.
It's
so
magic.
big.
It's like an orchestra
You know.
in a box.
Yeah.
And I don't take that on the road. I actually haven't even imagined taking that on the road
you
since I was
haven't
18.
changed the strings.
Actually, 25-year-old strings. I don't even touch it.
That is so Nashville, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a Nashville musician. It's like going, yep, those, Jeff King, it's like, those strings look okay to me. Keep playing them,
There's some rust on there, but they got some soul,
You don't do that with any of your other guitars.
No,
but-
there's something magical about that guitar, and it's a presence.
Right.
So I had the folks at the Colorado Guitar Company, John Baxendale, pattern and customize a guitar in that image.
Right.
And I just fell in love with this new guitar. It's all over the new album.
Yes,
but
that's so
in addition to that, I go back and I play some of my older guitars on the album too. Like I have an 1865 Martin.
Oh my gosh.
It's a little parlor guitar.
I love those.
And that was the size they made guitars back then.
Oh yeah.
And you played them in the parlor of a house.
I think you need to have like a little picture thing just of the, to where Maggie can show like all the guitars and instruments you used
Yeah.
also.
Oh yeah, there's so many.
Just for people like me.
And he uses them, like he featured that guitar especially almost like an electric guitar,
Yeah.
even though this is an acoustic album.
Right.
But there's a lot going on. Like we
So
wanted to
much.
make the tracks where you could listen to them over and over and hear something new.
Yeah.
And there's so many layers, and I love what he did, especially with the guitars. You even have your first guitar.
I employed my very first nylon string guitar I had when I was 8 years old. Wow. I had never recorded with it. I've always kept it because it was my first guitar.
Right.
And
And
so
you were learning like flamenco on it,
right,
classical.
I was learning classical and flamenco on it. And so it's like on several cuts, including Wildflowers, the Dolly Parton one, and it just sounds so cool.
How
and I couldn't
amazing.
believe how great it recorded. It was a fairly nice guitar, Hernandez.
Yes.
And I've had all this time, I've never had it in front of a mic ever before this album. So it's very special. Also, Meg, during the pandemic, we had a quartet of instruments that we loan out to students for our string camps. And they were made by my violin maker, John Cooper, in Maine.
Right.
And they were made in the name of Daniel Pearl,
Right.
who was
Pearl
the
family.
slain journalist who lost his life at the outset of the Iraq War, and when he was investigating who did it in the Twin Towers. And he was a fiddler and a violinist and a fan of mine. And so his family commissioned these quartet of instruments. During the pandemic, we couldn't put our string camp on, so these instruments returned to us from the students, and we had them in our home.
Right.
And Maggie learned to play the cello during the pandemic. I said, we got to put that on the record.
Totally.
So there's a couple of places, including the Stevie Wonder song, where Maggie's playing a little cello, I'm playing viola, and we create a string quartet between us, and then eventually a string orchestra on that Stevie Wonder song. All acoustic, but we're overlaying all these instruments in the process of
It's
the
just
production.
amazing. And like Maggie brought up too, there's so many nuances and things to listen to in this album. And that's why I'm so glad it's on vinyl. It's also on digital. You can get it on CD. I recommend vinyl, especially with the great artwork and everything that Maggie did. It's art on art. You've got incredible music and the artwork that Maggie has created throughout this. And I got to bring this up too before we go, that there is a new addition to the O'Connor method. There's a new book out that you've added for that also.
Yeah.
And so if they go to the website, I want to make sure for the website for everything and the album release tour that is ongoing, where do viewers need to go for everything that's going on right now?
Well, we've got the website, markandmaggieoconnor.com, and we've got a ton of beautiful videos for this album already. My son is a great cinematographer. Actually, my
He
son
did our music videos.
He did our music
He filmed
videos
And
them
the
all.
trailer.
and the
And the
trailer.
trailer, yes.
And he got that cover shot.
Wow.
That's from one of our videos.
How
That's
incredible.
what-
And all the YouTube channel, I had so much fun going
Yeah.
through that yesterday, preparing to have you guys in studio. You need to go to their YouTube channel because you're going to love all the lyric videos, everything they've created. What a great album. I mean, once again, you guys are pushing the boundaries. This is certainly country, Americana. You're bringing in new, younger fans all the time.
I know, we're so proud of it too. It's like we really wanted to make something that we like, not necessarily trying to fit into a box.
Right.
Like we're not trying to, we just want to really be proud of the music, and I think we achieved it.
Yeah, I think this is an award winner. Be sure, get your own copy. Go see them live on tour, but also you can order the album, get it autographed, or the CD. You can listen to the music on Spotify and other outlets, but much better on vinyl. Mark and Maggie O'Connor, thank you so much for coming back in studio. Congratulations on Life After Life.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.